This is now the second part of the series on Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead. And we have now come to the point when the actual event happened. But I would like us to read or at least study a portion of it. So like in verse 17 there in your notes, can we read that please? When Jesus arrived, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb 4 days. Bethany was near Jerusalem, less than 2 miles away. Many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them about their brother. I would like to point out that whatever will take place today, in this story, is witnessed by a lot of people. Bethany is not very far from the major city, Jerusalem. And obviously this family, Lazarus, Martha and Mary, they are quite popular. In fact, it was stated in that story that there were quite a lot of mourners, people who commiserate, who share sympathy with the grieving sisters for losing their brother. People gather when somebody either get married or get buried. Those are the two most important events where people would come. The first one is because there's food. The second one, because there are people who need some comfort. And there could be hundreds of people on this event that day to witness what is about to happen. Verse 20, as soon as Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went to him, but Mary remained seated in the house. Then Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother wouldn't have died. Yet even now I know that whatever you ask from God will give you. Your brother will rise again. Jesus told her. Martha said to him, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Martha has a good eschatology. He knows about the second coming, he knows about the resurrection. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me, even if he dies, will live. Everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? Yes, Lord, she said. She told him, I believe you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who comes into the world. Martha doesn't only have a good eschatology, he's got a good Christology at least. He believes that Jesus is the Messiah. And that's the crux of the point. That is actually what had been debated among the people. Is this the one who was promised to come? And Martha, on her part, said he is. He believes that Jesus is the promised Messiah. Verse 28, Jesus said this. Having said this, she went back and called her sister Mary, saying in private, the teacher is here and is calling for you. As soon as Mary heard this, she got up quickly and went to him. Jesus had not yet come into the village, but was still in the place where Martha had met him. The Jews who were with her in the house, consoling her, Mary got up quickly and went out. They followed her, supposing that she was going to the tomb to cry there. And as soon as Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and told him, Lord, if you had been here, my brother wouldn't have died. Verse 33, when Jesus saw her crying, and the Jews who had come with her crying, he was deeply moved in his spirit and troubled. It has not been properly shown in the movie that we just watched. See, here in this story, this is an event that happened publicly. Before this, Jesus has been trying to hide from the public. That's why whenever he healed somebody, he said, tell no one. And why is that? Because the time has not yet come. The time for what? The time for him to be crucified. The time for him to be sacrificed for the sin of the world. But in this story, it's almost like he's really giving his enemies the reason to kill him. And so in this story, for example, this event, the raising up of Lazarus from the dead, this is a very public event. And he wasn't hiding. Okay. So there were a lot of people there. Some of them are just curious as to know what's going to happen. And some of them really are serious mourners. I believe just like today, even in Asia, in some Oriental countries, whenever somebody died, the value of that person is measured by how many people are coming to the funeral and how many people are crying. And so it has become such a habit that people would hire mourners or weepers. Okay, been watching these Korean movies, and it's just a pitiful thing if during the wake, for example, it will just be the close-in family who are there. People who can afford, what they will do is to hire crowds just to go to the funeral. In the Chinese, one of the practice of the Chinese is to hire really mourners or weepers. So, I don't know if it's true here in our reservation. But the thing is, so when you go to a funeral, for example, or a wake in Asia, like in China, when you see people that are crying, don't be taken for it. Oh, well, look at that. He must really be a popular person. He must have a lot of people loving him. Now, in this case, we don't know. It looks like the people here who are commiserating with the sisters are really real friends who mourn with them. And the mourning is what? In a very public place. And Jesus, used this occasion to publicly display himself. Where before he was hiding, now he is right there open in the public. First of all, what is it that he is trying to display or to show or to express? First, it is what? It is God displaying his humanity, his human side. And this might sound sacrilegious. What do you mean, God and humanity? Because we know who Jesus is. Jesus is the 100% exact representation of the Godhead. In the Philippians, Paul said that he is 100% God. And he's also 100% man. So in this situation, we got a chance to see the human side of God. Verse 33, for example, when Jesus saw her crying, and the Jews who had come with her crying, he was deeply moved in his spirit and troubled. He displayed what? Emotion, which only a human being or a human person can have. Now, the original word, brimaomai, he was moved, when it is a very strong word that suggests some kind of an emotional outburst. Now, in most translations, they say he felt sad. But the correct translation would have been, he was annoyed. The word in Greek expressed what? Indignation or displeasure with someone with a degree of annoyance. So we could see in this, the emotion here is not at first really predominantly sadness, but just annoyed. Why was he annoyed? Because he saw people, weeping. I remember, for example, in one of the episode when he rose, the girl who has just died from death. And he said, come on, guy, what are you crying for? I mean, he is not. He's just sleeping. She's just sleeping. And people laugh at him. It's almost like this, like his first reaction was somewhat to ignore the fact that people are crying because somebody died. He was annoyed. He was sad. There is an indignation there. In fact, the same word is also used, when a horse snort. Something like, he was trying to trivialize what happened. No, I don't think so. But he was just annoyed. So that was what? Think of God expressing some degree of annoyance whenever he saw something happening. Why are you making a big deal about these things? Now, so he asked, so where did you put him? Verse 34, where have you put him? He asked. Lord, they told him, come and see. And that is when he wept. Jesus idakrusen. That's how it says. This is the shortest verse in the Bible. Jesus wept. Now, let me say this, okay? The original manuscript doesn't have verses. It doesn't have chapters. So the chapter and the verse were just what? Later addition for our convenience. But whoever had put this chapter and verse thing found it maybe necessary to really separate these two words from the rest as a single verse to make a point. It's not every day that you can hear or see Jesus wept, but in this situation he did. Jesus wept. Now the word there that was used, dakro, now here it is really sadness. The first one wasn't so much of sadness, but this one, it is of sadness. It's somebody who had been trying to keep his sadness to himself until finally he cannot keep it anymore. And so he just gave in to the pain inside his heart, and tears started to show, and he started to sob. A public display of emotion from God. See, listen. If you had been there that day, and you believe that Jesus is the Son of God, He is the promised Messiah, that is no small thing. Seeing him weeping. Who is Jesus? Jesus, Scott is going to give us a message on this about who Jesus is in the Old Testament. Just one example. Just one point. We believe that He is the angel who led the Israelites out of Egypt. He is the angel. You know what? He was the pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night. He is the angel of death who can just kill. Who killed the firstborn. He is that and more. He was there when God said, "Let there be," and there was. Amen. And here now, in front of this grave in this grave site, we saw him weeping. That is not the God that was introduced to us by our people. The popular view of God is somebody who is a bit distant. That's why that song, I think some many years ago, "From the Distance, God is Watching." Oh, here, God is right in the middle of tears and grieving and pain, and show sympathy for what's going on. Jesus wept. Now you might be asking, why did God weep? Okay, in your program, I wrote there something. If you could take a look at the back of the program, this is what C.S. Lewis said. We follow one who stood and wept at the grave of Lazarus, not surely because he was grieved that Mary and Martha wept and sorrowed for their lack of faith, but because death, the punishment of sin, is even more horrible in his eyes than in ours. See, Jesus knew what it was before sin came. He has seen how perfect the world was. What is it like for family to be together and love together? He had seen when he created humanity what they're like, healthy and strong and happy. But now here, he saw the effect of sin right in front of him. The crying, the weeping, the broken hearts, and death. And because he is a person and has emotion, he gave in to the pain and wept. Now that is the God that you worship. That is who Jesus is. So, like Max Lucado also wrote this, So, you're asking how it's like when I'm sad. When Jesus looks at you, was he affected by my sadness? Try to visit the grave where Lazarus was. He wept. So how do you think he feels when he saw you carrying your pain in your heart? For some of you who had been crying alone at night, some of you who are feeling so down, how do you think Jesus feels when he look at you? He is sharing your pain. The thing is this: your emotion is not 100% efficient. His is 100% efficient. He can feel every fiber of that pain. And not just for a moment, it is a 24/7 reality as far as God is concerned. There are how many people on earth? Can you imagine the pain that is going on? That the pain that God has to go through. He is 100% God, but He is 100% human as well. So here, God put on display His humanity. Secondly, when people, verse 36, see how He loved him. But some of them said, couldn't He who opened the blind man's eyes have also kept this man from dying? Then Jesus, deeply moved again, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone was lying against it. Remove the stone, He said. Martha, the dead man's sister, told Him, Lord, there is already a stench because he has been dead for 4 days. See, remember this, okay? The Jews did not embalm, okay? They don't have the services of Clayton Memorial, a funeral parlor. The Jews did nothing to stop the decay. They wrapped the body and sprinkled spices on it to mitigate the smell. Okay? Just for them to be able to do the last thing before they could not stand the stench of the dead. Now, here's what happens in 4 days. Okay? Can I have your attention, please? After 4 days, what happened to a person who died, without the benefit of embalming? Now, for those of you who are watching this video and are having your meal, put it on pause and finish your meal. Listen, what happened? The heart has stopped beating. The body cells are then deprived of oxygen and they began to die. Blood drains from throughout the circulatory system and pulls in the low places. Okay? muscles began to stiffen in what is known as rigor mortis. Now that is 3 years. That is 3 hours after the death. What will happen after 24 hours? Going towards the 72nd hours. The body has lost all its heat, all stiffness is gone, and the body is soft. Looking a little bit deeper, as cells began to die, bacteria go to work. And there's bacteria all over you, in your body. I mean, we don't want to talk details on that. The bacteria in the body of a dead person begin to attack, breaking the cells down. The decomposing tissues takes on a horrific look, and smell emits green liquids by the 72nd hour. So, you started to liquefy. So, by 4 days, you are what? You are liquefied, what? Stinking mass. Mass. The tissue releases hydrogen sulfide and methane, as well as other gases. Okay, what is methane? That is what you smell, when you pass by the pasture. Okay? And hydrogen sulfide, believe me, I work in the chemical laboratory, and it is not a good thing to smell. A horrible smell is emitted, the very reason of the stone on the mouth of the cave. So why did they have to put a stone? I mean, two purpose. I mean, to keep people out, robbers and animals, but also to keep the horrible smell inside. Meet Lazarus after 4 days. That's what he is. So we can understand, for example, the sister will say, "Oh, don't bother with us. Don't remove it." Because he is now stinking. Now the King James Version says, "He stinketh."
Yeah.
He stinks. But Jesus said, verse 40 in your notes. Jesus said to her, "Didn't I tell you that if you believe, you would see the glory of God?" So to remove the stone. Then Jesus raised his eyes and said, "Father, I thank you that you heard me. I know that you always hear me. But because of the crowd standing here, I said this, so that they may believe that you sent me." After he said this, he shouted with a loud voice. Now the Greek translation, the Greek original, the Greek expression, he shouted with a loud voice. With a loud voice. I mean, it's doubled, meaning he really shouted, "Lazarus, come out." John MacArthur made me smile when he said this, Why does he have to mention the name Lazarus? Because that is how personal God is to us. We are not just a part of the group. So when we talk about Blue Church Tiuspe, I mean, he knows that. But then he also knows the individual connected to it. He knows you by name.
Amen.
And so he said, "Lazarus, come out." But there's another point to this, Now this is supposed to be the cemetery. So there could have been many holes or caves in there. You get me? And there are many dead persons there too. If he just said, "Come out," they could have come out, all of them, So he said, "Lazarus, the rest of you stay where you are. Lazarus, only Lazarus, come out." Wow. And it says, the man who had died came out. No fanfare. Just a word from God. And that's it. See, just the word from him, stop the decomposition process, and what? The renewing started again. I mean, by 4 days, there is no more organs. No brain, no heart, no liver, nothing. It's just a liquefied something. But when Jesus said, "Come out," boom. Suddenly there is a brain, eyeballs, heart, and all that. Boom. Just like that. Split second. And then they think about something that is done not in secret, but publicly. I will talk more about this next week because we are running out of time. But think about this. If you were one of those who moved the stone away, if you were one of those who were tasked to unwrap him, can you imagine the kind of testimony or witness? People will come to you, hey, Mike, how did it happen? Can you tell me what happened? Abby, if you were one of those person who rolled the stone away or who unwrapped Lazarus, who just now, rose from the dead, people will come to you, Abby, how did it happen? Did it really happen, Abby? It is not something that you can deny. If you were the person there who unwrapped him, what a story to tell. Oh, grave, where is your victory? Grave, where is your sting? A public display of his power.
Amen.
And this is something that can't be hidden. It was public. It was never disputed in any, secular historical books. It was never disputed that it didn't happen. In fact, it can be seen in so many sources that it did happen. So this morning, I would like to say this. That is the God that you worship. This is the God. He is emotionally involved in you. He is emotionally affected by what's going on in your life. Can you imagine the consternation in his face whenever you mess up your life? You make some choices to mess up your life and somebody else's life. His disappointment. The only thing is he's not giving up on us. Amen?
Amen. Amen.
And also the power that he has. Who? How can you not love? How can you not serve? How can you not give up your life to this kind of a God? How can we ever contemplate the thought that we know better than him, that we are more powerful than him? When he said, rest, you still struggle. How can you take matters into your own hands when he's saying, give it to me, release it to me, yield? He knows exactly how it feels. And he knows exactly what to do. And he's able to do it. God made himself public. Nobody can accuse him of not revealing himself. Nobody can accuse ignorance anymore. Nobody can claim ignorance anymore as to who God is. Because he made himself open for everyone to be known. Amen?
Amen. Amen.
Let us close with a word of prayer.